Hey, hello. This is Philip Carey from London. This is my first Facebook Live session. The main process that we're going to go through today is I can see a few people have come through. Hey, Hannah, Hannah Fold, how are you? All the way from Australia, still up and around, and Parvish and Sarah and Judy even. So what I'm going to be doing today is I have a bit of a program. I'm doing this thing called early morning London runs and photo routes, and this is really a combination of about 10 years work which I've been doing, where I've been photographing London and putting them into different packages, and these are runs all around London. Now I know some of you say, well, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon now, and now that and it's not quite early morning, but this is to sort of give you an idea about what things you can do. Now I've covered the whole of London. I've covered from the Thames Barrier all the way up to it's actually beyond Kew Gardens and into towards Windsor. So I've got quite a large area. What I've got in here, I've been sort of going through a process where I've been collecting information, putting it into context, and now I'm at the point of communicating. So the sort of process I want to go through today is I'm going to take you on a journey which show you some of the things I've been doing. I'm going to be showing you London from a wide process, and then I'm going to go back and show you a particular shopping route in London that I've developed. That will give you an idea about how these information is portrayed, and I'm really interested to see what works and what doesn't. And but it'll also give you my intro to show you a bit more about what's on at London this week. So I want to be able to show you a run, I want to be able to show you London, I want to be able to show you what's on this week, and then I want to drill down into a particular run in more detail. And this week I'm going to be showing you central London. This is one of the first things one of the areas I did, so it's quite detailed, but it should give you a good overview of what I feel about London and its beauty. So you'll see that I've been doing some things around interactive digital books. You'll be seeing I've been doing things like VR and virtual reality, pulling those into tours. I've been doing blogs. I've been doing chatbots. Those are new things. You'll see that shortly. I've been doing videos, different types of photographs, what works best in London, where's best to do it, self-publishing, and doing I'm also a local guide. But the main thing is I'm trying to show what you can do at whatever age you can do. You can still get into these technologies, still produce them, and you don't need to be technical. So that's what you're going to see. So I'm going to start off now. I'm going to show you, hi Elizabeth, I'm going to show you a quick movie of some of the things that I've been doing. So you'll have to tell me whether this all works. So the first thing I'm going to do is the trailer. So let's hope you enjoy this one. You enjoy that. The other thing that I want to, so just getting back to me here, the other thing I want to try and now show you is I'm going to show you a bit about what the run is about. So these ideas about London runs and photo routes, I actually got this from your brother, Hannah, which when I was talking about this, he says, oh, one thing we haven't really got is if I come to London, when I want to go and do a run, where would I do that? And I thought, oh, that's probably quite good. So I focused it more by showing you that, if you did a run and you did it in early morning, you actually got London to yourself, which is the best time of day. But it also just means you can run relatively freely, which is really what you're after. So that's why I've called them early morning London runs. I always go out early morning. I was out this morning because London has that special. It sort of talks to you first thing in the morning. That's what it does. And so I've captured these runs so that it shows London actually very empty, which is not always the case. So I'm going to show you just another video now, which is really about what the route is about. And this is no, it's not that one. It's going to be the.
I'm going to take you on a journey from Charing Cross to the Houses of Parliament, a distance of about 3 kilometres in just about 5 minutes. We start at Charing Cross Station and we head across the Strand with Charing Cross on our left and take the first turning on our right down Adelaide Street. This will show us St Martin's in the Field Church. When this was built, it was in the countryside, hence its name. At the end, we will reach Charing Cross Road with the National Portrait Gallery in front of us. And as we turn round into Trafalgar Square, we will see the National Gallery, which has the nation's paintings. As we swing round into Trafalgar Square, we will see Nelson's Column, which was there to commemorate the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. As we come across the road, we will reach King Charles I Island, which is the modern-day centre of London, and we have Whitehall to the left, but as we go to the right, we will come to Admiralty Arch. This was built in 1912 to commemorate Queen Victoria's 60-year reign on the throne. We're now on the Mall. This takes us all the way up to Buckingham Palace, but we will be ending this part of the route at the Duke of York's Column.
Now, what I've tried to do is I break
the second part of the route ends up on
section.
Whitehall.
That was the first section.
We start in Horse Guards Parade, and we see the Police Memorial on our left and St James's Park on the right.
One place. So
this is the oldest of the royal parks, and in Henry VIII's time, it was a deer sanctuary.
I'll leave you to listen.
As we go past the Guards Memorial on our right-hand side for those who died in the First World War, we end up on to Horse Guards Parade itself, which has been a place for ceremonies since the 17th century.
Horses there.
It is used for the trooping of the colour and the daily changing of the Queen's lifeguards. As we go through the entrance to Horse Guards, we end up on Whitehall, and the first building that we see is Banqueting House, which is the only survivor of Whitehall Palace that stood here until 1698 when it burnt down. Today the area is full of government buildings. The first one that we see on our left is the Ministry of Defence. And then, on our right-hand side, the entrance to Downing Street and the Foreign Office. The cenotaph in the middle of Whitehall is the focus for our National Service of Remembrance in November. We cross the road and we turn down into King Charles Street, which is in between the Foreign Office and the Treasury, and this is the end of the second part of our route. The final part of the route ends up at the Houses of Parliament. At the end of King Charles Street, we pass the Bali Bombing Memorial and Churchill's War Rooms, and we're on Horse Guards Road with St James's Park on our right. This area used to be the old Aviary in 1600s. At the end of this road, we get to Central Westminster Hall.
There's a pub there, Westminster,
which was built in 1911 on the site of the old Royal Aquarium. Westminster Abbey comes into view on our left. The building we see in front of us began to be built in 1245. We cross over Broad Sanctuary and then through the gap into Dean's Yard, which is an ecclesiastical area and dates back to when this was the deanery. At the bottom we have Church House, and then swinging back on ourselves we have Westminster School on our right and Westminster Abbey Choir School on our left. Coming back out towards Westminster Abbey itself, on our right hand side we see the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre ahead of us. Then we can turn down the side of Westminster Abbey and we see Margaret's Church in front of us. This is the parish church of the House of Commons. We exit onto Parliament Square and have the Supreme Court in front of us. We pass statues of Lincoln, Mandela and Gandhi before swinging round onto Parliament Square itself with a full view of the Houses of Parliament in front of us and Big Ben. We turn left past Churchill's statue and end up at Westminster Station, which is the end of the tour. This quick tour should give you a good overview of what the route looks like, and will help you enjoy the route when you do it at your own pace, using the additional information that you can find in this digital book. Thank you.
So there we are. There we have it. So the reason I did that, I hope you can all see that. So I'm playing with this a piece of software called Ecamm, which allows me to put videos in and allows me to share the desktop, which I'll do shortly. But I'm hoping you can see it. So, but if there are any issues, let us know, because it gives a better idea about how it works, what the volume's like, etc. The thing I did about that video, I did some voiceover on that one, because there's not really. It's about a 2.2 kilometre run, but if I try to talk that at pace, it's quite difficult to get all your words in against what you're seeing. But I hope what you get, the thing I want to really try to achieve from that is that it should give you a sense that if you ran that route, then the things would be recognisable. So once you've seen it once, you should be able to see it a second time. And as you go about and see the parts along there, then it becomes a bit more interesting that you can log some of the information that you can see. So the idea is to try to get people to see London a lot quicker, understand it quicker, and navigate it, so that they don't spend all their time wondering about where they're going to get lost. It's about how they actually enjoy it. The other thing that I've wanted to sort of just try and see whether you follow this one is that I've created a number of digital books, and I've created them on 3 levels, and the first one, which I'm going to show you now, these are all available free, so you can download them at my website. I have a website here. Oops, and you won't be able to see anything at all now. I just need to share my desktop. So hopefully you can see the desktop in front. This is my website called londonruns.com, so that's quite easy. But under the page of digital books, all the books are in there. If you've got iPhones and iBooks, they're the best places to do it because they actually support the interactive. Google and Amazon, or it's charged on Amazon. Google's a bit sort of behind in terms of what it can actually show, but these are examples of the books in there. I wanted to just go back and actually show you one of the books that I have created, which I now can't find. Where's it gone? My books. So I'm going to start off with this book. So I'm just going to double check that you can see it. So let's see what it says. This is where I go down here. So hopefully you can see London Runs and Photo Routes in front of you. That's good. Right. So this book is really it's start a bit of a portfolio of the pictures I put together in about London. But the core thing I'm doing is to get people to see, know, and photograph Central and West London in a way that sort of makes them feel that London's part of them. And I've got a number of different areas covered in this first part. So I'm doing from Central London, which goes from about Waterloo Bridge all the way up to Notting Hill, Camden Town in the north, and Battersea and Chelsea in the southwest. I should go all the way down to Brompton actually on this one. So I've split it up in about 5 areas of London. So if we have a look at this map, it's a familiar sign of the river, as it probably is behind me in the picture. But what you'll see is that these are the individual zones. So there's a sightseeing zone here. This is the entertainment zone. This is the shopping zone. This is the West London zone. This is the North London zone, and this is the Southwest London zone. And what I've done really is I pick out each particular area. So I'm just going to just sit on this one here, which is the central sightseeing area. Just show you the main sightseeing areas that really sort of link it together. So we have one which we've just sort of looked down in here, which is the government area. Then we've got out to the west, we've got the Houses of Parliament and Lambeth Palace, and some of the southwestern parts going down towards the Imperial War Museum. And then we've got the Royal London down here, which is Buckingham Palace and St James's Palace, and etc. And then what I also do is I then split these down into London runs and photo routes, and these are 5 which I've selected, and these are roughly the sorts of length. But you'd be quite interested to know that so far I've got in this book, I've covered 38 different runs. That's about 96.1 kilometres or 2.2 marathons. And the average one's about 2.5 kilometres each, and they range from about 0.8 of a kilometre to 5.5. So they're really quite easy to use, but you can also, the idea is that you link them together. And the core of this book is just a sort of like the repository, but it's a very visual book. So I take each area of London, so each particular point. My idea is to have sort of at least 52 runs, 365 locations, 7 areas of London, and 24 events, I think is what I'm after, or icons around London. So what I try to do is I split the different parts of London down into each of the groups. So we've got Westminster Bridge. This is what you can see around Waterloo Station. And then at the bottom, there's the link about which run it links into. But I'm just going to zoom along a little bit to some of the pictures that you might notice. These should start becoming more familiar. That probably won't be. But when we start to get to here, we start to see the more famous sites of London, and the back of the Ministry of Defence, the London Eye, and then views from the London Eye. And I basically follow the whole of the book. So there's about 160 pages all in all. This might be a better way of doing it. So, and that's going to be a bit slow. Okay, so there's 160 pages, and these are different areas of London. So it's a good reference area to find out, oh yeah, that's a particularly good part of London I'd like to go to. The second book I wanted to try to talk to you about, because it's going to hopefully go through and give you more of a sense of what I'm doing here. The second book is what it's called, it's the first one I've done in the series, called London Shopping West End Routes. And what I'm doing from there is that each of those runs, like the shopping runs or the sightseeing runs, I'm going to collect them into one particular group. So it gives you a sort of a more concise view of those areas. And this is, and I'm sure that ladies on the call will find this is more of an interest to them. And this is, I mean, there are about 5 different shopping areas of London. This is sort of like the West End shopping area. And I try to put them in a sequence which enables you to see it all in one go, or one shopping trip. And in this particular case, as this one actually does show you, there are in fact 500 shops in 5 kilometres if you actually wanted to run it. I put these down into 4 different shopping experiences along the route. So there's ones which use general departmental stores, which is in Oxford Street. You've got luxury shopping down Bond Street. You've got, well, I call it like gentleman shopping, but it also includes the arts, but it goes down Piccadilly and Jermyn Street. And then there's the trendier shopping, and there's also the fashionable part going up Regent Street and Carnaby Street. The core process of how these books work, I don't know if you can see these ones, but these work on iBooks and iPhones, so it allows you to sort of pull the information across, shows you the route. So we start from, where it says start, go down Bond Street to Green Park, go along Piccadilly, and then go up Regent Street and back in to Carnaby Street, and then back out up to Oxford Circus, and then we go along Oxford Street and finish up Marble Arch. Now the idea is also that what I'm also wanted to sort of use in these Facebook Lives to give people an idea about what's going on in London, and these are generally my sort of like go-to sites for finding them out. And if you've never done London before, these are quite useful to know. So there's City Hall, for example. So City Hall website, if this works, I'm just going to pop out of here. City Hall is run by the Mayor of London. Now, for those who are not, we have a Mayor of London and we have the Lord Mayor of London. So the Lord Mayor of London looks after the City of London, and the Mayor of London looks after the rest of the boroughs. But they do provide a good site, with one site which gives you a view of what they call our events. These are the ones that are supported by the Mayor of London, such as the Open Exhibition, Totally Thames, and today's London Open House. But quite a good site to just see what London Assembly is doing, and it goes into a lot more detail there. What it also does, if I then come back into my books, if I come into the books, the Visit London site, for those who are not sure about what websites mean what, is they call it official visitors guide. That's also linked very much in with the Mayor of London, but there's still different groups come together. So it provides a good view, or a slightly wider view than the Mayor of London's area, but it also has things to do each day. This weekend, events calendar, which is really just looking at all the London events that happens during the year. Again, a very good site to get the information that you need. The other thing that we've also got in here is Time Out. Now, Time Out's a commercial magazine. But it does provide you with it sort of goes out from the main sort of events and attractions, but it does also give you the the high level things of what's on. So obviously, Open House is the big event that's coming here today. It does sometimes have annoying little things that pop up, but I don't want to respond. But it does actually. But it does actually give you bars and pubs and films which are useful to have a look at, because they have quite a nice tile format. I know some of them are going to be sponsored, but they do have quite a nice tile format to try to find the information that you need. The final thing there are two other sites. I'm just conscious of time, so I'll just skip these ones. But there are other ones in there, such as London Town, and various other ones around here, which can help you find out what's going on. Now, the general view of these sort of books, it does allow you to then go up and then see what the way it's structured really just gives you a quick overview about each of the routes from Bond Street, so you get a bit more of an idea. And I've sort of given it a star rating here. And on this left-hand side in here, this first page is just like a summary, jump in and get to where you need to. It will also then zoom off to some hyperlapse videos. So if we're just going to look at the Oxford Street one, because we're going to be looking at that as more of a focus today. Well, it's not quite the run we're doing today, but it does actually have the same sort of format that it shows you the process. Again, lovely music about what Oxford Street looks like. I think this is about 6 o'clock in the morning in the summertime. Now, let's get back here. Then we've got all the links into the actual pages. I'll just drop into Oxford Street, and just so that you can see how it is structured. So what we try to do is what I try to do is no we, it's just me and the snippet, the whippet. There is I give an overview of just one run. So this is actually just Oxford Street. It just shows you the run. It shows you the places around it, just in case you're just walking in around it. And I do try and highlight the core sets of information. I also show all the way all the shops are along there. So this is generally sequential. I'm not a shopper, but it's useful for those people who are doing it. The idea sometimes is to actually do these runs first in the morning and then come back and do it at your leisure, but at least you know where you're going through, and then there's some general information about that process. What I also do, because trying to put videos on these books are quite difficult, this does allow me to sort of I take this runs and just almost create pictures of it, and sort of pictures tell you where to go, and there's a little sort of a navigation map down through there. So if I click through this, you can see a little pointer down in here moving across slowly. But it will just, if you're on a plane or a hotel or where there's no Wi-Fi connection, which is rare these days, but it does give you that sort of process without sort of wasting energy on your phone or iPad. The other thing I also do for those who like to know about what's happening in London, then I just got some general pictures which takes things a bit more easier, so you get a more realistic point of view of each of the buildings. So at least you recognise them. And then at the bottom, I have 4 real buttons here. So the first one just really just focuses in, it brings you back into the video which we saw later. But I've also created some 360 tours. Now I have a small little Ricoh camera which I've collected, so it's not a complete tour, but I'm hoping that this will give you an idea about what we've got. So I collect a 360, so if I move this thing around, you should be able to see that if it will move, you'll see it's moving around, so I can see what the other end of what they are of Oxford Street looks like. But it also just allows me to link different pictures together. So we're going from here, and it'll actually take me to the next one, and then down to the next one. And if I want to go and have a look at what John Lewis looks like, I can do from there. So I've also tried to create it so that you get a view of what the London looks like in reality. So there's some core information there, which is, I think some of you might find exciting. Well, hopefully you all find it exciting. And then if we get back to the book itself, then there's information on here which I tried to add some general core information. There's some really quite interesting facts about Oxford Street. First thing, it wasn't what Oxford Street, for example, that we know today was really the road out to Oxford, but it was also the route that people being hung at Tyburn Place would have been strung up from. And Marble Arch at the end, that's not its normal place. It used to be, as in Wellington Arch, which is the bottom of Hyde Park Corner, used to sit either side of Buckingham Palace before it was redesigned in 1850. So there's some general information there. More information on shops, which I'll try to add a bit more information on once I know what people want in that area. And then history, which is the main sort of aspect of the route that we do here. So I just show what the route looked like. This is an old map that I've got from about 1850. It's a balloon, they call it a balloon map, but I basically raised it up and then showed London in 3 dimensionals. And when you look at this now, and you can look at, maybe what Google's doing, sometimes these are simple, effective, and well, they were there first, sorry to say. So that's the general process of it. So I hope you found that good. What I really want to talk about on this there's not a great deal more time left now, but there is. Let's go back to the books. So the run, if you wanted to know the run in more detail, this is an example of the run. This is almost like taking just one section of those runs and breaking it down into real sets of detail. And I won't be doing that for many of these, but I've been doing it on a few. But this format has taken me probably about 3 or 4 years to try to get right. So I'm hoping it's right now. I include audio, so you can listen to my voice.
Hello and welcome to this Central Westminster photo routes.
That's always
this is your visual guide to this area.
I should do. But it also has links to the relevant areas in there and a brief sort of view on them and a help screen. But if we just sort of go to Westminster, there's just, same as before, there's a general page that just links into the YouTube video that we saw earlier. This one sort of does exactly the same, but it sort of just gives you a link and just talks a bit about where this route is in London and where it fits. This is really just telling you information that you may want to see about London, read about each of the areas of London, and it gives you sort of an overview. But this is a great sort of area before you start it. So by the time you're walking the route, you know exactly you know more about it than most of the other people in London. Some general information around it, and then if you ever wanted to go down and find more information about, this is the actual path that I'm actually going to take that you saw visually, I can have a look through that. And then this final one I think is quite interesting for those who like history. Again, it describes Westminster, about how Westminster came about, but also how it changed through the ages. And this is really quite. I'm going to try to skip to the towards the back, but it shows you, what we were like in Elizabethan times, how we suffered with social issues, etc. Very interesting about the population. It says 1600 here. The map that you could see behind me was about 1543, but in 1500 there was only 50,000 people, so it increased fourfold in 100 years, and then you can see this huge increase from 1800, another fourfold increase in these two particular periods. Actually, as a result of immigration and migration, is a thing that the government might want to think about. But each of those periods actually made the country bigger and stronger, but can't. Now, these are quite interesting maps. This is a map from about 1650. It shows London, the start of the route, what you would have looked at in there. So by the time you got out to St Martin's in the Fields, you would have been actually in fields, and Covent Garden was a field. Trafalgar Square was a mews where they kept horses and carriages. The Charing Cross was a cross, which is now in Charing Cross itself, and then it comes down and then through. Well, this was a tithe yard, so it wasn't a horse guards yet. But then you started to come in through started getting to the palace gates around about here. The palace really was in this side. Westminster Abbey, you could see it was complete. A lot of this area, there was a Tyburn which rode down here, so it actually did have a sort of a semi-moat around. But then we could see how it changes here. And then this is what it looked like in Dickens' time, the run as it comes down here. We could see that we've got Hungerford Bridge, so this is Hungerford Market. The Charing Cross Hotel wasn't there, but it was a market. Trafalgar Square had just been built, and Dickens was still writing his novels, and Darwin hadn't quite given his publication for the Origin of Species. Parliament, though, was building up pretty well. It didn't look the same as it does now, so all the buildings were quite old and were quite. The embankment wasn't there, so it was quite marshy in and around here. This is Old Westminster Bridge. We could see the House of the Parliament. This had just been, it was currently still being built at this point because it burnt down in 1843. I guess a good story around there. And then we could see the aquarium hadn't quite been built at this particular point, but there we are. There's a bit more about London. Now, if you wanted to go through and see, what more information about the run, as you saw in the first video, I broke it down really between the first stage, between Charing Cross and Admiralty Arch. So again, it just allows you to see how the route that you saw on video would have been working. So you've just got like a same sort of process that you have a visual view. But I think in here, what I spent a fair bit of time is actually just marking each of the points of interest along the way. I don't know if you've walked in London, but you come across statues. What's that for? What does that mean? How are they connected? And this is it was quite informative that you can actually see maybe a bit of the history about how it's all come together, what Eleanor's Cross was. I mean, how significant that was, but also significant people such as Oscar Wilde. Conversation with Oscar Wilde about where their processes were. The crypt. Again, these crypts were used to actually get more money because you could stack them all up when people had died, and it was around about the period where people were paying vast sums of money to the church to absolve them of their sins when they went up to heaven. There we are. And then there's some very historical monuments. Cavell due to the First World War. Then we've got the galleries. George Washington, very interesting that he just stands on. He doesn't actually stand on British soil because underneath him he's actually on soil from Virginia. Oh dear. King George the Fourth. He was Prince Regent, so he was responsible for Regent Street, and a lot on the arts, and then Fort Plympton, Canada House. But there's a lot of information in and around those areas to see. So the idea is that when you see it, you get more of information about what is important in London. Okay, the other final part that I think you'll find. Oh yes, the other thing is that if you wanted to find more information about any one of those, and I've got all the links underneath here. Then on the history side, there is, I think this is probably one of the ones that's quite fascinating. Not always that easy to pull together, but I've done the route, but I've also just said I've got about 6 or 7 different points around here and said, what if I stood here and looked back in time, what would I see? So I tried to start off and say, well, this is Charing Cross in 1900. And then I then go and try to take a similar picture as it is today, and you can see that it's not too dissimilar. In fact, it's only about the roof that's changed, and it's got quite a... but then there's other sort of areas, so I give an idea about what London was like around there, what it felt like. And then there's different, Charing Cross, for example, but areas like Trafalgar Square you can see. And I just talk around each of those particular areas. So that's the core sort of process that we do. So I'm just going to pop back to the live. I said it was going to be about half an hour, and I think there may be a few people still joined. Go to the website and download it if you've got these books. These books on London, the first one I did tried to put it into a, no, I say tried, I did. I achieved it. I put them into just a linear book. That's about 320 pages. You can still download that. Now, the reason I'm doing it like this is because I have, I don't know if I'm right on my own, but I think if you go to places, we read cities and we like to read people different to the way books are. Books are very linear, but when you actually look at a particular place, the first thing you want to do is say, well, where am I going? Am I going the right way? Is it safe? What's the right sort of process? If you get that in your head, you can then start to look at what you see along the way. And so these are the individual points. And then once you've got that sort of juggling that particular ball, you can then look at the context of saying, well, what was the history behind this? So how's this connected here, there, and everywhere? Oh, one final thing before I go from here. I just wanted to. What are you seeing? Are you seeing anything? I'm going to press the entire screen. I just wanted to show you that on the last page on the book, and these they're not long. There's about, but I also have a Westminster venues, so you can actually see information about sort of photographing London. There we are. It's coming through. So if you need to photograph London, but it's also got all the events, places to stay, and quite an interesting one here, and which I haven't done yet, is try and do a pub run within 500 feet from the centre of London, and these should be most of the pubs that you can do that. But I've got this in all, and these are well worth looking at. Anyway, to get back on to message and to close the event, I hope you found that quite interesting. Any feedback would all be useful. I just want to finish off with my chatbot. What is a chatbot? So a chatbot really is it's a new sort of way that you can start to communicate. It's a sort of a communication style. You see in all these marketing efforts in order to try to sell you things. Hannah, I think you'll find this very useful. But so I've been putting this together, which sort of allows people to engage more with the material. So this is my video of it, and right, I'm going to get to. Right, I'm going to start this again. Right, so you should see the video in the main. that look like? I'll show you very quickly because I have her here. So this is Snippet the Whippet. So when you click on that, you'll get this one. You'll get this comes to me onto your Facebook. So go and take a look, and then it's some woof buddy. You can actually see it just goes through, fetches the information, and it brings you to a navigation page where there's things you can go through and have a look at, say, the London runs. So these are the areas of London that I've pulled together. So it just is it's basically a chat sort of process, but it just allows you that if you wanted to get sort of a view of anything, so you wanted to go and have a look at the east of London, it would just go forward and just bring you back it's just the information that around East and West London. So just wondering what I had. So it just shows you some of the runs that we've just got around in here and some of the runs that we've already pulled together. This book's going to come out at the end of the year. So if I want to return, it just goes back and it will then just allow me to just have a little play or conversation. If I want to go to a series of YouTube videos, for example, no, it's actually going to the digital books. This is where you can actually just go through and see the books in sequence, and then click on any one of these links and download. But I think you'll find it you will find it interesting and have a play with it. And I'll be trying to put a few more of these chatbots out once I've worked out what people find more interesting. Anyway, so what I'm going to try to do now is I've taken up some time of your day. I hope what you found of. So I hope today you found it pretty useful in terms of what I've done. The map behind me is of London in around about the time of Henry VIII. Really fascinating if you look at about how that works. But we'll look at that in more detail. So I think really what I want to say at this point is thanks very much. I'm going to try and do these once a week. Next week I'll just do a bit more of a shortened summary at the front end and then focus more on one of the areas of London. I'll maybe even start from the west and start to go east and bring you some stories about what the run looks like, give you some stories around the place to make it entertaining. Anyway, any feedback would be useful, and thanks so much. Bye-bye.